My 2 words to describe Derek Beaumont would be passionate and flamboyant.
There's no classy way of getting in one of these, you know.
Passionate and flamboyant.
Thinks you better than me.
Brutally honest.
Oh, no! He's gone on purpose, sir. It's just been done just while they get the breath and get set, because they're rolled.
He's mad as a hatter, it's not all show, it's, he's daft as a brush.
Hey!
What you see is what you get, 100%, 1,000,000%.
Miles off!
There's a lot of really, really tough moments he's had, and no doubt sleepless nights.
Did it ever cross your mind to walk away?
It did. I'll be honest with you.
Can be a big angry animal.
That made me see red. I stormed out of this particular room that we're in from that table. I said, that's me finished. Rest assured, I will be back in 2023, 1,000,000%, with a team that sees one of you go at my expense.
I mean, everyone's got a bit of leopard print somewhere in their wardrobe.
I'm thinking, what in God's name is happening here? That's the beauty of Derek, and I think that's what everyone loves about Derek.
Morning. Morning, Em, Sam. You all right? Yeah. Yeah, so mainly, it's just in the den here and on mobile, emails and stuff, and then all various things that need doing. And my to-do pads, like everyone else, just work with writing stuff down, crossing it off as I've done it. And every day, that ends up with more on it than I cross off it. So it's always a problem. And then rugby stuff, we still do a lot from here. Now and again, we'll just get up and just rattle some curls out, just to keep your arms going, because I can't get to the gym. Just keeps you fit. Try and keep that down a little bit so I can keep self-medicating with a few beers. It's my sort of headspace, go-to place, so you can get on your bike and just clears your head. Gives you a bit of a minute. So we have quite a few of us here. You see a bike rack in the factory. So we do quite a lot of charity bike riding. The last 2 we've done, we've raised in excess of 40k on each one. So we did one for, last year was Life for a Kid, which is a Hull-based charity. Previous one to that we did for cancer research after my old man passed away. I was brought up in Little Hulton, which is kind of a little bit of an underprivileged sort of tough area, if you will. My mum was only young, 21 with 3 kids. And that's my first memory as a house. It looks a lot nicer now than then. And this bit of grass, it's really mad to see. We had a game of football on that, so you know there might have only been like 4 or 5 of us, but we'd make our goals at either end, and that was big enough to have a game of football. You know, I look at things round here and I don't class myself as any better than anybody who lives round here. And if I lost everything tomorrow and, you know, I had to spend the rest of my life living there, I'm sure I'd be able to do it happy. You know, it's about who you are and how you treat people. Well, it's 46 years since I lived here. There's a lot gone on in 46 years, you know, so I like to think, you know, I've learned a lot and I've become something really good, and I think it gives hope and aspiration when I speak to people in schools that, you know, think that they've got no chance because they've got a single parent family. There's a lot more of them perhaps these days, but you know, they're living in a tough place. They don't see any way out. They don't see how they're going to get some job, or, you know, I didn't get the best exams at school. I didn't go to university or anything like that. Sometimes it's just being focused, driven, hard work and believing in yourself. And coming back, I've done it a number of times throughout my life. I just drive past this way. It's a long way home, but I'll just drive by. And especially if I'm having a bit of a tough time over stuff, because sometimes I do struggle mentally with things. My grandma used to live in the downstairs part of this bungalow, and we used to walk from where I showed you at Buller's Road. So this was where I very first had hold of a rugby ball in my hands. This here now, I mean, I don't think they even use it, but that is exactly the same as it was then, 46 years ago. And we used to roll down that hill doing roly-polies, thinking it were massive. and play football and stuff, and then walk home after we'd had our tea. I recall it being 2p, I think, on the buzz, but it was 2p that was a waste for 4 people because it was 8p, and that could be saved for something else, so we'd walk back. I never saw that as a sad time. I always felt loved, I always felt treasured. We walked, we went, we did things together. So now I'm what I am largely down to the morals and values and things that she taught us at an early age, and I'm proud of that, and it's made me who I am today. When you look back, you used to fill these school book things in, and I think my mum still got them, and one of the things is, what do you want to be? And the earliest one I ever wrote in was a priest. When we moved to Leigh from Little Oulton, I went to a school up there, St Gabriel's, and I used to be an altar boy. I've always been quite religious as a Catholic anyway, so yeah, that was my first thing. This was the first house in Leigh, so this was owned by my aunt who owned the pub, the Bowling Green, so they used to come and get my mum when somebody didn't turn in to do a shift behind the bar, and obviously she couldn't come with having the 3 young kids, so they used to say, that's fine, they can sleep over in the pub while you work, because it was a busy pub. She let us live in this house to kind of give us a bit of a better chance from being away from there and being closer. I suppose we didn't have to stay in my cousin's room then while she was working behind the bar, and this is where we set stall, and it just felt sort of like a bit different, you know, like a bit, I don't want to use the word cleaner, but if you know what I mean, like just the streets, the pavements and how things looked. And it was just like a fresh start, but when you think we've not gone very far, but it just felt like a new place and a new place to begin from. Mum was she was a marketing director in a window business back at the time, and you know, I've always been somebody I'm like a sponge, so I'm always, even now to this day, you know, impressionable. I'll learn and I'll listen and pick things up. So I was always all ears to what my mum was doing and saying. So when they had their own business, was heavily involved in going around dropping leaflets off, we felt very much a part of it because it was a family business. So when I got involved into that, it was kind of a natural sales progression. They split up and the double glazing business closed down. I was kind of a little bit lost. It didn't feel the same doing it for other companies. I didn't have that affiliation. Truth be told, I was bumming about a bit, just smoking cannabis and drinking and just looking to get through day by day, really. I had a bit of trouble. I got banned from driving and I got into some jobs working for a cleaning company. I was cleaning in a prison at Kirkham. I've kind of done whatever I've had to do to survive in that grain. And then when I got my licence back, I went in with my uncle, hence the AB, that was his name, he had a small window business, and grew it. And that's kind of how I got into rugby, from not playing and having lost all interest in it, to sponsoring a game. I got a couple of players down to open up the business. We opened up a shop in Leigh. And Kev Ashcroft, absolute legend of our club, he was the sales and marketing at the club at the time, and he came down and he really latched on and was trying to get as much out of us as possible. And in the end, he got us on the sleeve as a sponsor and took over in the end in a consortium in 2002. We got into Super League in 2005, and at the end of the 2004 season, and I was that kind of hell-bent on wanting to achieve that. And I've always been someone who's pretty, you know, driven and focused, and then once I want to do something, I don't stop till I've done it. And I put too much effort and too much time into it, too much money, more money than I had at that time, because I was one of 10. And ultimately, I remember my mum turning around and saying to me, listen, you don't really have a business anymore if you don't get back into it, because you're putting more than you can afford into that, but more importantly, all your time. And this is gonna go. And I listened to those start words, and I wasn't enjoying the rugby at that point, and I left and did a deal with Arthur Thomas to get out, sign my shares over my loans, and then he could take the club further. He was financially better positioned, and I kind of always had it in my mind that I would go back, but I then used that as a motivation to work hard and build my business and just focus solely on it, and I broke the decking element away from the double glazing side and just worked tirelessly and relentlessly. It wasn't all plain sailing. I remember selling a car along the way to pay people, but I always made sure I paid people. And eventually, over relentless hard work and marketing and focus, I built a market-leading brand in what we do. So when I needed to get out, Arthur Thomas, who I mentioned, his son Darren, he was heavily involved at St Helens, so his son Darren came as one of the 10 that I needed to get the right amount of money to take over. And when I left, I did a handshake with Arthur, basically on a very small amount of money, that basically gave it a legal consideration so that it was a genuine share transfer and loan transfer, enabling him to move forward. And he invested a lot of money in himself, but the deal was that if ever that became a burden to him or his family, and I was in a position to take back ownership without it burdening me, then we would reverse that transaction. So in 2013, I'm down in Anglesey with my wife and youngest. We were looking around a church, actually. Remember it vividly, got a phone call off Paul Rowley, who was the coach at the time, saying, "Club's in a mess, can't pay the players, you know, could you come along and help?"
I was part of backroom staff and as an assistant coach that wasn't getting paid. And I still remember that to this day. We played Batley at home on that afternoon, and Paul was a coach, I was assistant coach, and we had the likes of Rob Parker, senior players in the team, and there wasn't enough money to pay the players.
And I agreed to go down, and I said, show me something that's worth investing in, because at this point in time it was just paying the wages, not taking back control. I hadn't heard from anything, but Arthur unfortunately sadly passed away, and I was aware of that, but I didn't know whether it was burdening his family.
It was an ugly game, it was a scruffy game, but it was a really determined game, and we finished up winning that game. And I think Derek saw something in that group of players.
So I personally wrote everyone's checks for that, and we pulled some other people together. And then I got a phone call off Darren, one of Arthur's children, and he told me the story about what I'd done with his dad. It made the hairs on my neck stand up, and I was like, wow. And he said, is that true? Is that the case? Because we just can't cope with it, and we're dealing with all the emotions of everything, and the business isn't there. And I said, it 100% is, and I'm 100% man of my word. I wasn't ready for that. I didn't want to have to, I'd built my business well, but I always envisaged going when I was, say, maybe 60, if I'm honest. And when that would be my full-time thing to do, and I'd retired and sold out. But yeah, I took it on. That was 2013.
I was playing for York Reserves against Lee Reserves, and I think I was 17 or 18 at the time. And I was having quite a good game. I scored a couple of tries and kicked a couple of goals, and there was this man behind the sticks, and he was telling players to hit me around the head and stuff, and I turned around and I saw him, and he was pretty big at the time, so I gave him a few choice words that I thought about him. And he said something back to me, and I just got on with the game, finished the game, and obviously didn't know who it was. And I went in the clubhouse after the game, and I saw him walking up to me, and I was thinking, oh, I'm in trouble here. And he introduced himself and said who he was, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry about that. It was just like heat of the moment in the game. And he said, well, I like that about you, and I'll give you a call during the week. And then he called me and offered me a contract to come on loan from Castleford, and then I've been here pretty much ever since. As soon as I told like a few people that I hadn't been introduced to him, and he called me, and they were like, you can't say that to that man. And I was like, why? I was like, he's crazy. I didn't really know that at the time.
But they've done the job they set out to do today, which was beat another Super League side and securing a place in Super League in 2017.
There's a perception where, I think at the time, and I think it's clearly gone now, he would go in and he would pick the team and stuff. It was far from that. But he'd been there as support. There's times where, he's a businessman, and within facets of the game and the club, and that's what it is. It's a business, and man managing is, whether that's man managing your assistants or players. So, and he's done that all his career. So he'll always go in there and offer advice, and sometimes you would use that, sometimes you wouldn't.
We started really well. We beat St Helens at home, we beat Warrington at home. We lost in the last second to Leeds, and we were sitting quite nicely. We went to Wakefield and lost away in a controversial manner. And again, probably naively, when I look back at some of the big mistakes I made, I put a thing on socials clearly showing that the try that they won the game with wasn't a try. And it obviously didn't help the RFL, it didn't help the referees, it didn't help how the game looked, and I probably didn't handle that right on reflection. And we just ended up on a downward spiral and finished up in a £1 million game.
A massive, massive match for these two sides. They've got the numbers, they've got the first try of the game, and it's Maggie Dawson, Myler, and Tierney is in! Walsh, little dummy from him, and Fouad Yaha will wrap it up for the Dragons. Mission accomplished. Catalan will be in Super League in 2018 now for sure. And Lee have to contemplate a return to the championship.
That put us in a real difficult place, but again, I'd already committed and got the support of the sponsors that we'd stay as a Super League club. We got rid of a lot of players and brought a lot of players in, almost a complete revamp, and that was possibly too much. Things didn't go well for us and we had an absolute disaster because we didn't make the top 4 playoffs. The relevance of that, and a lot of people never got this, so it's a real important point, was that whilst we had a parachute payment, and I was well aware of the fact that if we didn't get promoted from Super League, the following year the parachute's gone and all these contracts still exist. So that was an additional 500k on top of what I'd been comfortable with. Now, I was okay with that. It wasn't ideal, but I knew it was the risk I took if we didn't get promoted. And signing all these contracts, I had to be prepared to underpin that, and I had been. What I hadn't envisaged for 1 minute, and none of us did, was what happens if we don't make the playoffs. So not get up, but not even make the 4. And the reality of that was another 600k loss of funding on top of the 500k, on top of what was already going in. So it would have been a £2 million in the one season, and that's what at that time my business was making a year. So that wasn't viable, and I had to literally decimate the whole thing, strip it back, get rid of these big contracts over a number of years, and go back to the starting block with a local coach and John Duffy, rebuild, and that was a very, very tough time.
During that time, did it ever cross your mind to walk away?
It did. I'll be honest with you, it's the first time I've ever sort of felt like quitting at anything, but I wouldn't have done it if it would have been a way of the club quitting. So it was okay for me to come away from it, and I put it out there that if somebody could come in and show that they had enough money to put into the club equivalent of what I'd wrote off in the club, which was, you know, more than 1 million, less than 3 million, then I would let them have it for free and sign it over to them, because then I would know that the journey of what I was kind of giving up on could still continue under somebody else, from having, if you will, a far better club than what I inherited, which had a winding up order on it and couldn't pay its players. And I would have been satisfied that I'd kind of achieved something, even if it wasn't ultimately what I wanted. So we'd had a roller coaster, but I wasn't leaving it a sustainable club that I wanted, but a better one. But there was nothing of any substance. There was plenty of people who would run it with nothing. So I just took the decision to stay in there, but step back visibly a little bit and let Matthew Chandler, who was my CEO at the time, a solicitor, just deal with a lot of the things, and let John Duffy have his local players and no pressure. And they actually made the playoffs, and Duff did a great job, and then that enabled us to rebuild. And kind of John wanted me to get my mojo back, and he should get a lot of responsibility for getting me back interested in the game. And he got me out back beating for it, and from that came the Super League bid.
Rugby League was one of the last sports standing, but now the decision has been made to suspend the game until at least April the 3rd.
Well, it's huge news, isn't it, from Super League. Toronto Wolfpack have just announced they are not going to participate in the rest of the season. The campaign is due to resume in less than 2 weeks. The club say they've been overwhelmed by the financial pressures of coronavirus.
We're about to bring you some breaking news because in a few moments' time, Super League will announce to us which team will replace Toronto Wolfpack and become the 12th team for next season. 6 teams are in the running. That's Bradford, Featherstone, Leigh, London, Toulouse and York.
The team that will therefore take up the 12th place in the 2021 Betfred Super League is Leigh Centurions.
It was a fantastic feeling, an achievement, but it actually was a negative in the end for the club, if I'm honest with you. Without being disrespectful to the players I had then, that was a team that was built to win the championship and be pretty certain it would win the championship as last year. And the idea was to add to it as we went. So we tried to add to it, and the money wasn't the issue, but COVID was, so the overseas players didn't want to come. There was a bad perception of England and how COVID was from our press compared to what it was in other areas and how we was dealing with it. So we couldn't get any traction. So I didn't think it was a bona fide season from which to promote and relegate, but I didn't want to see Fev or Toulouse told they couldn't come up, you know. So it set us back. And the irony was what really fueled me, and more so than any of the other things I've spoke to you about being knocked down and coming back, was because I felt that way, and so did other clubs at the time. And there was myself, there was Salford, there was Huddersfield, there was Wakefield, languishing, if you will, down there with not much in it as to who could have gone. And we put a working group together, of which those clubs was put in, to come up with something that we could do that would overcome this relegating and promotion in a full season, because I wasn't going to be part of not promoting someone to save my own skin, because that wasn't right. So we came up with a proposal to change to 14 teams, which a lot of people think Super League should be. Of course, the finances is the issue. And I said, well, whoever finishes bottom stays on $1 million. I reckon if you promote 2 teams, they'll both be happy on $1 million, because they both know they're coming up now rather than one might not. And then literally it costs every other club in Super League 35 grand with the other monies we have that gets put up. So if we go along those lines, we can have a 14-team Super League. We all agreed that that was what we should put forward to the board. In between that, these other clubs got a win or two and we didn't. And then when it got put to the vote, they voted against their own proposal. And that made me see red. I stormed out of this particular room that we're in from that table. I said, that's me finished. Rest assured, I will be back in 2023, 1,000,000% with a team that sees one of you go at my expense. And when you want to go to 14, my answer will be no as well.
Hi, Derek.
Hi, is she not there, Cal?
No, I think she's popped out.
All right, any chance of a brew?
Yeah.
One of them hot ones where you boil kettle proper.
I followed Derek into this business. There was an opportunity to look after the warehouse, the logistics and the management side of it, which is a big operation. But within that role, then obviously gone back to do the off-field stuff. So at my desk, I pretty much have 2 emails, my Leigh emails, maybe Sunday's emails. I'll go down to the club 2 days a week and just make sure things are okay there. So it works really well. What he does always expect in anything is your best, and that's sometimes what's difficult. And I've played and coached, and certainly playing, you sometimes don't give your best wrongly. You know, it happens. One team might have done it last weekend, or an individual, or 5 didn't, and I don't think he can ever cope with that, because it's just not what it's about. You get on your bike, or you come into work, or you go training, or you go in the gym. It's your best. Unfortunately, not everybody all the time will do that.
I'm probably averaging three tellings off a month from Derek, but that's, like I say, he is, you know, he expects perfection, and sometimes when you know you're not quite on the ball, he'll let you know.
All offside! Miles off!
He's not loud or angry for not having a reason. He's not power-driven, angry, or things that I think people do expect he might be. If there is anger there, or he does raise his voice, it's generally for a passionate reason and because he feels he needs to be heard. He is, at heart, number one, a family man. He's got a heart as big as a house, and will do anything for anybody. He absolutely needs, wants and respects the truth at all times. Honesty is key for him. He's a lot softer persona than you think.
You know, some of the stories with, you know, the homeless people that he helps, people will never ever understand how much, you know, himself and Laura have committed money and time to people who are less privileged. Incredibly, you know, probably millions now, I suppose, and doesn't shout from the rooftops. So I see all that side of it as well. And like I say, he can be a big angry animal, but he's a big soft cuddly bird as well in some moments.
I've had a bit of a bad period in my life. I ended up homeless, and I was just touting for work up at the traffic lights, and he's pulled up one day and he's just given me some money, you know, and I sort of said thank you, lights were on red, so just chatting to him, you know, asking how his day went, and he was saying, you know, asking him what he does, etc., you know, because he was in a nice car.
You see homeless people like that and at the traffic light, you just assume that they don't want to work, that they've no ambition or aspirations to work. And I suppose that might be the case for some of them, but then there's people that are in that predicament that isn't the case. And he was just one of them that, you know, handed him that thinking I'm going, and then he's asking me, am I okay, because I look stressed. And I said, you know, yeah, it's just I'm just stressed with work, and he was like, I wished I could work. Which kind of surprised me, and he said, but I have no address, so I can't get a job. And I said, well, I don't think you need an address to work for me. Told him where to go, and I didn't expect he would, if I'm honest. I thought he'd just take the money and do whatever it is he does that keeps him on the streets, but lo and behold, he turned up and asked for Dukesy, and 2.5 years later, he's still here. He's got his driving licence back, he's got a house, he's got a bank account, pays tax and insurance, and can drive a forklift.
It's done a lot for me because it's helped me, you know, like psychologically, it's helped me sort myself out in a lot of ways, you know, give me direction, things to work towards. Plus, I really enjoy working here, you know what I mean? It's like working with your mates, and I look forward to it every day. You know, for somebody to take you on when you've got no proof of ID, not got a bank account, and to trust you, you know, it's a lot, that, you know what I mean? It really is. Like when I started working here, it was like no pressure, everything was, you know, always, you all right, how are you doing, do you need any money, you know, things like that. It was just nice, you know, it was just, you don't meet, I mean, there's a lot of great people around, don't get me wrong, but sometimes, you know, when you meet somebody like who goes out of the way, like Derek, like the rest of the management here, it's, you feel like, how can I put it? You do anything for them, you know what I mean? It's like really, really good people.
So we were in a board meeting, I think it was December. It was a general chat around the table. We hadn't started the agenda. We talked about IMG and iterations and, you know, Warrington Wolves and Wigan Warriors, etc. And I think we'd been in conversation about South Africa because it's a place that's very close to Derek's heart, at Leopards Rock. And he's like, oh yeah, Lee Leopards. And so I've never, until January this year, had anything leopard print in my wardrobe, just to put that out there. So I immediately in my head thought, no way, not Lee Leopards. But when we were first talking about it, and he was talking about how to sell this prospect, he did a role play to himself about how to sell. And we all sat there with our mouths up, because I'd have bought anything that had just come out of his mouth, to be honest. It was spectacular. His absolute super talent for selling and knowing how to match the audience that he's talking to is phenomenal.
Derek's a smart cookie and a smart thinker, and you know, we knew as a club, especially with the IMG, we knew that we no longer could carry that Centurions, the Lee Centurions forward, and we need something to make us different to everybody else.
So I looked at Super League, and I thought, well, if I'm an American guy coming in here and wanting to change this look at this as a business and grow this rugby league that's so-called in desperate need, then I'm going to look and I'm going to go, well, Wigan and Lee, like, what's that? Because there's like 5 miles between them. They've both got a warrior, a centurion, so you know, a person there who's as a warrior. They both got red and white striped kits. Do we need both of them? Because they both look the same, and one's got steeped in victory and gets 12,000 fans, and the other is languishing in a division below. So actually, is that needed? The simple answer is no, it wouldn't be commercially. You would just say that can go. It can either join that or it can go. That doesn't need to be two elements. It told me for sure we need to change how we look, because otherwise we're just never ever going to compete. A brand that's vibrant, a brand that's colourful, create an atmosphere, we build a different thing that doesn't exist currently in the game, and then we become the unique product in there.
What I would say for me, my perception of this, the changing point was the lads were doing really well. Derek went over to South Africa and had a life-changing, near life-ending experience.
We'd been going there for, I think, about 6 years consecutively to the same place. We got heavily involved in conservation, in particularly of rhinos. I remember grabbing 4 beers, had a big pint of water, went for a walk, reported it to the ranger, is all you have to do. I'm fenced in, and off I go.
Drago! Drago!
And I go over this peak summit. I'm trying to see if I can see a leopard.
Oh, bumpy way down across that line fence. Doubled up barbed wire. Rocks, not the greatest. 1572 ash. Go and find a leopard? Nah, don't worry mate. I'll stick with the fence on this side. Not ready for meeting my maker just yet. Cheers.
And ironically, that would have been the last thing anyone would have heard or seen from me, because within 5 minutes I almost was meeting my maker. I've gone up the other side and I've put my foot in a wasp's nest in a rock area, and they've just basically come at me, and I'm like, well, got to the road to where I'm not, you know, I've got maybe one and that's gone. Started walking, it immediately felt my eyes come up. I messaged the ranger, is there anything can sting you out here that can cause this reaction? The vet goes on about, no answer. So I swipe across to see if it's been read, like 15, 20 seconds later, and it's not. Then my mouth goes. So now I know, right, that's it, it's not, you know, I now know I'm having an allergic reaction to what's just happened to me. And I do start to panic, I'll be honest. Try ringing my wife, no answer. Try ringing my son, no answer. Try ringing the ranger, no answer. So I'm like, my only chance is to get back. I'm not built for running, and I can't run, but I'm walking pretty fast. And I also know that the higher I make my heart rate, the more I'm causing a problem as well. And it gets more difficult to breathe. Next thing, I've gone blind, but blinded by bright light, not darkness. That could be partly dehydration, but it's just part of what's called an anaphylactic shock. Then I fall to my knees. I can't stand up. I try and get up and I fall. My body's shutting down by this point. And I remember just saying, just stop, I'm trying to crawl there, and I'm another 100 metres and I'm never going to get there on my hands and knees. The knees are bleeding, my hands. I pulled myself under a tree, and I had 1 beer left in my pocket, my mouth's all dry. And I always said when I was a bum, if you will, smoking cannabis on my own, not working, I used to say I'll be a millionaire at 40, but be dead when I'm 50. It didn't seem a bad thing when I was in my 20s. Right then it did, and I'd had a year of near misses on my bike and different things, and a lot of it's just psychological. And I just sat there and I thought, well, you're a big daft sod. You've got it exactly as you defined. And I went from panicking to just accepting that there's nothing I can do, because all I was bothered about was my wife finding me and my kids finding me dead at the side of a road. That was the thing I didn't like. I'd accepted that was what, that I was going to die, but I wanted them to find me so they knew, because I knew then, we've gone 15 minutes at least, I knew then that there's no way as a paramedic, even by helicopter, getting there within the next 10 that you've got, so it's game done. And I started to shout and I tried to get my phone again, and I couldn't. I got a bit of like blurred vision now, and I couldn't. I just could see gobbledygook letters. I couldn't type. I wanted to try and type a message to my wife to say what's happened and, you know, I love yous, and like that would be that. And I couldn't. And I've thought at this point, maybe shout. All I've got left is shout, right? And I had a drink of this beer, and then shouted out as loud as I could. And when I've been typing gobbledygook, my wife's rang me back. She's felt something, gone and got her phone to do Find My Phone to see where I am, which she can see where I am, and that I've not moved from that point. And I've when I'm doing whatever, I've answered this call. So they can't hear me there, but she's hearing me through the phone. So she's run into the kitchen. The ranger's not there, but the tracker is. And he's getting the car ready for the drive, and he's drove out, somehow got me in. My friend's daughter has a nut allergy, so they have EpiPens and strong antihistamines. The paramedic was saying, don't use the EpiPens, I'm on my way, keep doing all the vitals, and put these antihistamines in, which they did. I remember them falling out. And then they carried me out of the car, told me they was going to do it, and that was just too much for my body at that time then, and I just blacked out. And I remember, and people think, you know, there'll be people laughing when they watch this bit of it, because I used to think that myself. But I just remember being in a cloudy, dreamy. It was really nice, it was fine. And there were these four heads right in the distance, and I couldn't tell who they were, but they were getting closer and closer and closer. And then I woke up to actual real people. They chucked a bucket of ice over me and was like, you gotta stay awake, gotta stay awake. And the paramedic had got there and then was hitting me with the adrenaline and stuff you do. My blood pressure was 60 over 30. But fortunately, all my bike exercising and stuff, I've got good cardiovascular, and I came round, and eventually I returned to full normality. I just have to carry EpiPens in case I get stung again. So I was very, very fortunate.
I was in tears just out of what he'd gone through, and you could see fear in him, fear of being that close to maybe not continuing with this life's journey that he needs to continue and finish, you know, in many, 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 many years to come. Fear of the love he has for Laura and the family and them not being near him, that was what got to me.
Everything flashes back at you, and it's a moment of reflection on, well, that's it, that's fine. And the one regret I had sat there was all this money I'd put into rugby, and I just thought, I'm leaving a burden there for Laura that she won't know how to deal with. I'm sure other people would have helped her, but she's going to just have to part that away sensibly. But it all counts for nothing. That's how I felt. I felt it will all count if I've gone. And then when I reflected on it, when I hadn't gone, I thought, you know, if I've gone, then that club goes back to where it were, and everything I've done is give people highs and lows, but it counts for nothing, and it needs to count for something. So I have to do something differently than I've done before, hence take the risk and recruit in the May rather than at the end of the year when you know you've won and it's too late, so that hopefully it does count for something whenever that time comes.
That, in conjunction with the score lines that we were getting and the wins going into place, it was like, this is the time. This is actually the right thing to do. It happened at Leopards Rock. Leopards was coming up again all the time. They have leopard conservation. It was the rangers who worked with the rhinos and the leopards that had saved his life. It was all building into this, I've gone goosebumps now, into this absolute realisation of, this is the time to do this. This is what needs to be done. I have been allowed to live for many reasons, and this is definitely one of them. I think that was my perception that I took from what had happened to him over there.
I got wind off my agent about it. You know, I think the rebranding, I didn't really understand what that was going to be. All I got told was it's a new era for the league. The times of the league going up and down, he wants to address that, and you know, this is part of his philosophy. So it was a Thursday night. I had to be over here at about 6 o'clock. So I've gone in, opened the door, and Ricky Latelli's sat there So I didn't even know Ricky had signed, and Ricky didn't know I'd signed. So I was like, hey mate, you all right? I was like, what are you doing here? So like, oh. And then I was like, Matt, that's mad. I think it was Derek or someone's come in, just put the t-shirt, the top down, and said, it's not a finished article, but this is what it's going to be. And me and Ricky just went, right, okay, it's like, it's Lee Leopards. I went, okay, so is
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome first of all to Lee Sports Village, the home of Lee Leopards.
The presentation was excellent. You know, the comparison between where we've been and what we want to achieve. When you look at what is success, and the fans did ask questions, and they did, you know, they were also very honest, which was great. And the fans that came in thinking one thing, I would say 98% of them went out feeling a different way, in a more positive way, more accepting.
First thought wasn't a fan of just how everything looked, but it got a lot of people talking. It got a lot of people interested, whether it was good or bad, in what we were doing here at the club. And for myself, it took me a while to sort of get my head around it, but yeah, it's been unreal. It's been good being different. We're not the same as anyone else. What he's done and what he's invested in the game and what we've done as a team and as a club this year is different to everyone. He puts himself out there and he walks everything that he talks.
Ball over the top, Charlie! Just Charlie into the corner and gets the Leopards' first try on their return to Super League.
You know, in terms of what, you know, Derek's involvement, he just lets me know what we've got to spend, and I sit down with Adrian, you know, on a daily basis, and you know, we chat late at night, and these players are available. What do you think? And you know, it's just an ongoing process. But now we're seeing players that actually want to come to Lee Leopards. I think probably go back 18 months. That was probably a little bit of a challenge, having just been relegated from Super League and then going into Championship. But I think the perception of the whole club has gone full circle, and you know, I think again that's a credit to everybody involved.
Lamb now tries to weave his way in, and he's over. And the Leopards are closing in on the top three.
Some people didn't really believe that we could actually achieve what we're achieving at the moment. And we knew that. We knew people didn't believe in what we were doing, but it was the matter of us trying to earn the respect of others and earn people's, you know, belief.
It was a shock to everyone, just the name Lee Leopards, until everyone keeps saying it, it is a bit strange, but to us now it's just normal. The leopard print, he aims for Cloud9, he wants to be #1, but he's a really down-to-earth guy and someone who's worked hard to where he's got to, and he puts his money where his mouth is, and he's you know, really passionate about not just the club, but not just the players, but the club, but then the town and the people in the town, and what's the people in the pub saying about Lee's team, and he's got so much going for him. It's the more you play for him and get to know him, it's you get more humbled to play for the guy.
They raise the new Lee Leopards banner here in front of the home faithful.
You feel it in the town, you feel this pride and this passion, and the naysayers have gone quiet. This has opened up to, you know, maybe before fans, die-hard fans, possibly couldn't afford a replica shirt, but you can wear leopard print anywhere and suddenly be part of this. It is so clever. And I didn't even realise, I don't think Derek realised how it would take off.
I've just got a quick presentation I want to do. Last time I spoke in front of you guys was all about records, weren't it? Yeah, all these records that we broke, and we've got another record now. So give us a shout out for Lockie Lamb. We've got to keep this off socials just for now, but he's been named Super League Player of the Month for May, the first time our club. Well, look at that. Hey. There you go, mate. So, bit of a token souvenir, and I think that's massively, all the lads will agree that you've massively deserved that. They've done, it's the first time our club's ever had a player awarded that, so congratulations on that and well done. And then I've got one more, right, which is also for an individual, but what this one is, as important as that is, I think it's more important because although it goes to one person, it's because of the efforts of every single person in here that this one goes. And this is another record, not just for our club, but the first time ever in the game, because the coach of the year for the same month is the man himself. Adrian, man. So, same token for you guys. So absolutely brilliant. I think it's fantastic that not only are our fans and everybody recognising your efforts and what you're doing, but the game itself's recognising that we've got the best players, we've got the best coach, we've got the highest try scorers, and everybody's doing great. So there's only one word that describes that achievement there for me: magic. Skill, guys.
It's a side at the bottom of the table against a side that could finish third with a big victory here.
Here's Lamb who skips his way through. He's racing now, only to fall back to Bean. He's going to go straight past it.
Go away, bring him at him.
Has someone form on?
Yeah, Ben Reynolds.
There's discussion on whether this is a punch thrown by Ben Reynolds. It looks like an open-handed shove. No, it's not. That's a close fist.
Well, the crowd have seen that and the crowd have reacted. Red card for Ben Reynolds, a moment of madness.
Well, it's stupid, but it's all coming from someone starting being grubby like that. If that's what he's come over here to do to help him win a game. Great work, Charlie! Great work! Yes! Great D, boys!
He's come and scragged you there. Robert said he should have gone as well as you because he started it. It's you need just not do it because it's not good in it. You know that. But at the end of the day, mate, the lads have backed you up and enjoy the game, all right, and put it behind you.
Yes! Come on, back!
Derek Beaumont wears his jacket with great pride. Lee are looking up. It's handshakes and smiles all round for the Leopards.
If they can continue to improve at the rate they are doing, they look on the evidence of today that they're certainly going to be a top 4, top 6 side.
Don't rip it with them big shoulders, Tom. Yeah! There you go, mate.
As much as he is passionate about it, he has a good time with it as well. Like, he understands that, you know, it is a business for him, but he's still got a little bit of that young boyish about him where he gets it. So I think the way that he communicates with everyone involved here is certainly a strength of his. Whether it be, you know, he's a successful businessman for the same reasons. His skills to be able to communicate and get things done.
As an owner, I think he's a little bit different to what he's like outside. He's crazy. I think he's just like one of the boys. Like inside, he's just an older man, and you know what I mean, with a young person inside.
I just wanna have fun, clap my hands, turn around now and dance, dance, dance. I just wanna have fun, clap my hands, turn around now and dance, dance, dance.
That's the stage where we have all the acts on. So originally it was about putting that opening night on. I wanted to set a real big example for the rebrand. It was under a lot of microscopic attention, and it was important to me that we set our stall out in the eyes of IMG and the whole game being on what the future's going to look like. I thought, well, we'll lead on making a statement on that. We'll not wait for IMG to say what the game should be doing. We'll give our take on what we think the game should be doing and see where that sits. It was never actually the intention, to be honest with you, to put that stage in for a year. It just felt such a shame to take it down, and we felt that everything went so well and was so well received that we should continue doing it. I felt that we just set a standard and a bar that I then couldn't go below it. The overall thing is a combined expensive package that if you if you rolled it out over the 13 games this year for the PA, for the riders, for the bands, for the pyro, you would have a high-end marquee player for that collective money. But I think in terms of you could get an high-end marquee player, we have some good marquee players, we're doing well enough on the pitch, and that player could break a leg, get injured, not quite perform, and you don't necessarily get what you want from that, and you can maybe get a bit more from something else, whereas that does deliver because it gives the experience, it's guaranteed to, it's change, and it brings people in earlier and it brings people closer together. And from the council's point of view, there's more secondary spend before the games, and that enables them to in turn help us in terms of what we have to pay for using such a fantastic facility.
He's certainly a leader within the club. You have a leader what people look up to and you follow, and he's inspired certainly a town now in regarding what he did. And we all got involved in the rebrand, and we all sat as a board and we went through the decisions and the ups and the downs and the backlashes and stuff. But ultimately, Derek's name is always going to be at the top of all that. It took a lot of guts and a lot of bravery.
I've been involved in that roller coaster and the sadness and the happiness, but actually the happiness is down to Derek Beaumont and Laura and what they have given, not just financially, what they give from the heart, what they give in passion and time. I mean, it's crazy how much the club takes out of them as professionals, as owners and as a family. You can only watch and admire and watch and learn. But yeah, as to where Lee Leopards would be without Derek Beaumont, there wouldn't be Lee Leopards. And I don't know where they'd be as a club.
What are they saying?
There's only one Derek Beaumont.
Yeah, I know there is.
Okay.
There is.
Will I please everyone all of the time? Never. Will I always have my haters? 100%. I think everybody does. But you know, I'll embrace that, and I'd rather be the person receiving a vile message than the person who's sending it. Because I think, you know, it's not an healthy place to just be being negative about what other people are doing. If you don't like it and it's not for you, then don't look at it and don't be involved in it and enjoy what is for you, because you can't always change what other people think. So believe in what you do, be strong with it, lead hard with it, and be prepared to acknowledge if you get something wrong, change and go again. We did that in the early part of the rebrand, reintroducing the red. We went too far away from it. We heard the feedback and we changed and we brought that back in and we listened to our fans, because if we don't, they'll all go away. And there'll just be me and our hero, the real hero of the club, John Woods, stood here dodging pigeons.